Man, I just cannot get enough when it comes to talking about this player. And if you watched the Why I Want video I made about him back in 2019, you'll understand why. I actually did a little bit of research, Yeah, Lego doing research for his videos. That doesn't happen often, I know. But I did take a little bit of a trip down memory lane myself by checking out the Why I Want video back from 2019 and just seeing what I had to say about this player when he was draft eligible. And it's interesting because a lot of my feelings about him have sort of remained the same. I know 2019 was just a few years ago. I mean, it's 4 years. It's not terribly insignificant, but it isn't a long amount of time. But there has been so much that has gone right, a bit more maybe that has gone a tad wrong in this player's development and his path so far, and what I wanted to do was go over what the future may have in store for this young Hab. Today we're going over to the recent acquisition that the Canadiens had from the Colorado Avalanche. No, we're not talking about Justin Barron. Today we are talking about Alex Newhook once more. And we've already done a few videos. We talked about when he was traded to Montreal. We talked about the signing. Now what I really wanted to do in this video was just talk about the player itself. Talk about the future, talk about St. Louis, and talk about the deployment. Because when it comes to Newhook, the 22-year-old 5'10", 190-pound left-handed center-left-wing player has been re-signed to a pretty good contract at $2.9 million a year till 2027. He is only 22 years old, as we had said, and last season he had 30 points in 82 games played. He wasn't really taken advantage of in the best way possible when it came to deployment and when it came to usage. Sure, for a good chunk of the Colorado Avalanche season, Newhook was tasked with replacing Nazem Kadri on the Avalanche's second line. But as the year went on, you didn't really see him fit into that role all too much, and as a result, you saw a little bit more stress be applied to that overall situation there. Newhook was the third-line center when the Avalanche won the Cup in 2022, which is great, but his point production did decrease from that season until this season, even with the quote-unquote bigger opportunity. Newhook, as we have said over the past few videos, was a guy that I really loved back in the 2019 draft, because in the BCHL he had 102 points in 53 games played. He was a dominant Junior A player here in British Columbia, and a lot of people in my fan base, because back in 2019, we were mostly only making Canucks-related videos, so the majority of the fan base was Vancouver-based. I know that's kind of what it's like nowadays too, but we've got a lot of fans of other teams that tune into these videos nowadays compared to back then. A lot of y'all in the comment section of the Why I Want video on Newhook were like, yeah, this guy is great. I see him whenever I watch my BCHL team play the Grizzlies, or I'm from Victoria myself, so we know what he's about. There was a lot of hype for this guy in this part of Canada, and for good reason. Alex Newhook was essentially the BCHL's version of Jack Hughes back in that league. Because Newhook would dominate the game with his speed, he would really take over shifts with really nice puck handling ability, and his stride was unmatched amongst anybody else in that league. The BCHL isn't as talented as the NCAA or some of the other junior leagues in Canada, so you can understand that even though Newhook was a really good point producer back then, he didn't go as high in the draft as other people that had similar skills. Newhook ended up going in the 16th overall spot to the Colorado Avalanche, immediately taken after Cole Caulfield, so it's very intriguing seeing how these guys are now gonna be teammates. Either way, though, Newhook carried over his talent to the NCAA, where he was a 42-point in 34-game freshman for the Boston College Eagles. This is where things really took off, and all the other scouts said, oh yeah, look at this guy, he's really putting himself on the map, doing what he was doing against kids in the BCHL in the NCAA. And eventually, he made the Colorado Avalanche. Now sure, you could say that last season was sort of a setback, it was his second season in the NHL, sophomore slump, this and that. But if we go over onto this article published by Stéphane Carteret from July 11th, it goes over some comments that Alex Newhook made regarding what's going to happen in Montreal and what he actually talked about with Martin St. Louis the other day too. Link is going to be in the description to this TVA Sports article. It's in French, so I had to translate it to English in order to read it. But this is what the article goes out there and says. The Montreal Canadiens sacrificed their 31st and 37th overall picks to get the Avalanche forward, and it's a safe bet that in a context where performance pressure is not yet strong on this team, Newhook will have all the opportunities to reach his full potential. Now pause before we go over into what Newhook actually says about the Canadiens. I did see this argument pop up, particularly on the Steve Dangle podcast, that for the Colorado Avalanche, you could say that they're a team with standards. Their margin for error is really small because they're a championship caliber team that wants to do championship caliber things. As a result, when a young guy like Newhook gets thrusted into a second line role, maybe there's a little bit of pressure there for him to not make any mistakes, and if he does make a mistake or two, maybe he'll get punished for it. The idea says that Montreal doesn't have this same pressure applied to it because they're not a cup contending team. And I think it was Steve Dangle on the podcast who said, yeah, Montreal doesn't have any standards. We're rebuilding. Come over here, man. You can just do whatever you want. And that's kind of a perspective that I want to be a bit careful about, because it's not like Marty St. Louis is going to tell this team that you can go out there and lose, but St. Louis has had some pretty intriguing conversations with some of these young guys, as highlighted by Newhook in this article. I spoke to Marty a little bit, and it was a good conversation. Everyone seems to like him, and you can see what he has been able to do with young players. He seems to let them play freely. It's very exciting for me, and I can't wait to play for him. It feels good when a coach tells you that he wants you to play your game and not be afraid to make mistakes. It's different when you're on a team at the top of the division that fights every year to win the conference. Confidence is an important element, added the one who says he is ready to evolve as much as a winger and a center, even if he feels more comfortable at the center position. It's not a problem, he said, talking about the center versus winger argument. I can bring a lot of speed to this team, Newhook said. I like to play on the counterattack. We're a young team, and even though I'm a young player myself, I have Stanley Cup experience. I want to take advantage of this new opportunity from the start. I want to help the team achieve its goals in the next few years. He also goes out there and talks about players on the Canadiens that he is familiar with. He established a good relationship with Kent Hughes, who, previously, worked for the agency that represented Newhook. He's also familiar with a few other players, including Justin Barron, former Avalanche player, as well as Caden Gooley and Kirby Dach, with whom he represented Canada in international competitions with. He also got to know Cole Caulfield through friends. The guys all told me they liked Montreal, and that I was going to fit in well with this group. It should be fun. And based off of what Marty St. Louis was able to do with the other 2019 player on this team, no, not Cole Caulfield, I'm talking about the third overall pick, Kirby Dach, he went out there and had a really good year himself. So if St. Louis is able to pull some of that magic and sprinkle it on to Alex Newhook as well, I'm all for what we're going to see in 2023-2024 from Alex Newhook. Sure, you could say the center argument is a little bit complicated now, because you've got Suzuki, you've got Dach, you've got Newhook, you've got Dvorak still. Yeah, remember that guy? He's still on this team. And so it might be a little bit difficult to try to adjust the lines to make it so that everybody's getting proper playing time, but if you decided to put Dach on the wing again, then all of a sudden these problems sort of go away, unless you're very confident that Christian Dvorak has more to give as the Canadian second-line center, which I don't really know if anybody else is. Sean Monahan is also on this team. He still is a Canadian, and he was really good when he was playing in that limited sample last season, so who knows what's going to happen with the Canadiens and their center situation, but for Alex Newhook, this is a guy that I really do think has a lot more potential to show for. If he has his absolute peak, best-case scenario type of development from here on out, I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up putting up a 50 to 60 point season sometime within the next few years on this same contract. He's a player that really dominates the game with his speed, his stride, his skills, his offensive IQ, and his shot. He was doing such an amazing job in prior years in the NCAA and at the junior scene, just putting the puck in the back of the freaking net and making great plays as well. If that's able to carry over, if he's able to allow that part of his mind to unlock those skills at the National Hockey League level, this could be a very dangerous, speedy, puck-controlling center. I said this all the way back in 2019, but if you like players that play like Connor McDavid, Jack Hughes, or Nathan McKinnon, where the game is just controlled through their feet, Newhook is in that similar mold. Of course, he's not going to be Jack Hughes, he's not going to get 100 points in a season, but back in 2019, I kind of said, yeah, if he ends up having like a 70, 80, 90 point career, then that's not too unrealistic for the skills that he possesses. Sure, the skills are there, it's just the magnitude as to how high his ceiling is. That's the question that we have to answer over the next few years. So hopefully Marty St. Louis is going to go out there and help us discover what the answer is. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Alex Newhook and what you feel his future is going to look like with Montreal. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.